The horrors persist, yet so do I. Welcome back to another week of RPG horror stories, where I go on Reddit so you don't have to. Another week, back at it again, back on the sub r/RPG horror stories. We're gonna see what this week brings us. Taking the top 3 from this sub for this week, and then going from there. Starting it off, quote, I want to play as Rick Sanchez and a dull DM. Rick and Morty in D&D. Interesting. Let's see. Longtime reader, first time poster, formatting on mobile. A few years back, I signed up at a local games club near my workplace, close enough that I could swing by there after a shift or two throughout the week. They had booths for groups and different areas for different things, and it was all really well managed. I'd played a few games there with various people and had good experiences when I saw someone on a Facebook page recruiting for a game of Eclipse Phase 2. For those who aren't familiar, it's a sci-fi setting. AI destroyed most of humanity in the solar system before disappearing and leaving all sorts of nasty nanoswarms, basilisk hacks, and horrible biomachine hybrids laying about. Humanity is recovering. You can swap bodies by downloading your consciousness from place to place. You can be an uplifted octopus, all that good stuff. I signed up immediately. That sounds so cool. I'm gonna have to check that game out. I love apocalypse things, as you can see. Session 0 came about and I met the DM and 3 other players. I prepared a wisecracking snake mech merc, one guy was inhibiting a swarm of microbots, one was a digitized consciousness, and the last was, well, as he proudly informed us all, he was Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. In my experience, there are 2 types of people who like Rick and Morty. One person just kind of enjoys it because it's an odd concept and it's got some good layered jokes in there and think it's an interesting take on an overdone subject. And then there's the other person that's just, Pickle Rick! Funniest shit I've ever seen! I'm gonna put my money on the latter. Problem is, it's hard to replicate Rick Sanchez at level 1. That and the character is notoriously antisocial and a danger to friends and the like. Yeah. One thing about Rick and Morty is Rick does not give a shit about anybody else except for himself. That doesn't work in a group scenario. This will be interesting. Fortunately, the DM shut down his efforts to wheedle for increased stats so he could have a mastery over all the skills Rick would have. And we managed to work around his character's affections for the first 2 sessions. We played edgy and arrogant and almost started a fight or 3, but we handled it. This is going down a bad path already. I'm glad the DM shut down his quest for power gain because Rick Sanchez is, for lack of a better term, he's a level 20 person. He says he's a god in the show, and he essentially is. So I'm glad the DM shut that down, and I'm glad the players are recognizing the fact that he wants to be edgy and arrogant, and that doesn't sound like a fun experience. Let's see where it goes. But while we were busy handling it, I began to realize there were issues with the DM too. Ah, shit. Every enemy hacker had a skill of 120 to 100. We could never counteract or trace them because they possessed a mastery outside of human comprehension. They were using this mastery to make the station's coffee dispensers swear at people. Okay, funny, but what? I'm not familiar with the system, but it sounds like this DM is railroading the ever-living hell out of this group of people to say, oh no, no, no. You can't attack these people. They're too powerful. Sure, make it difficult, but make it fair at least. We emailed ourselves from our remote backwater asteroid to Luna. It's faster than flying there, okay? But okay, sorry, that caught me off guard. That registered halfway through. That they emailed themselves to Luna. They emailed themselves to a different planet because it was faster than flying. That's the true winning debate between snail mail and email. Is, hey, we could fly there, but we are technically digitized consciousnesses floating around in this ethereal space. We could email ourselves instead. I love that so much. I definitely am going to check out this game. That's hilarious. But they conveniently had exact replicas of our modded up bodies and gear ready to go. My character had a penchant for swinging between various forms, hence his heavily customized mechanical snake body. Consider my surprise when strangers I'd never met before had an identical frame lying about for whoever happened to come along next. Well, that's boring. I don't like that. Make it interesting. You gotta search for it. Change bodies, like giving them opportunity to try out something new. I don't like this DM. Every single fight was against one opponent. I'd make efforts to cover our rear, check our flanks, position myself to provide covering fire. I wanted to be ambushed, but it never happened. In the final session, we got shot at by the different guns. I was thrilled. I thought there'd be a minimum of 2 opponents. I was wrong. It was one robot with 3 arms. Alright guys, so I know I've only been throwing one opponent at you at any given point in time, but I thought for this one, I'd spice things up a bit. One opponent, 3 arms. This is stupid. Cool. One guy with 3 arms. Reminds me of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but with different body parts, if you know what I... Never mind. We're continuing. Session 3 was the breaking point. We'd blown up a body horror monster factory and its mad scientist crew the session before and were prepping for our trip to Luna. But Rick Sanchez was nowhere to be found. The player smirked and said we'd had to go find him, and the DM wouldn't let us progress until we'd done so. So we pinged his location, his cabin, and went to collect him. Upon opening the door, the player grinned. You find me curled up on my cot, horrifically drunk and crying inconsolably. My father was one of the scientists we vented. Still crying, I roll over to face you. In my arms, you can see a half-empty bottle of spirits and a block of C4. Okay, so they're getting every aspect of Rick in this character. Nice. I really thought they were gonna make a Pickle Rick joke. I really thought it was going there. I'm kinda glad it didn't, but I'm very sad that this is the turn that it took. And it's not even a character moment, because as it says beforehand, upon opening the door, the player grinned. This isn't like a character building moment. This is a ha ha ha. This is funny because this is what Rick would do, and I'm being weird because of it. Let's see where not Pickle Rick, but Depressed Rick. All 3 of us turned to the DM and said we weren't going anywhere with this guy. In and out of character, we listed the myriad of reasons why a depressed drunkard with C4 is not a good guy to hang around with on a space station. Valid. We wanted to haul him out of the brig immediately. The player protested. It's what he would do. He's upset. We're obviously not doing lore-accurate Rick Sanchez, or else we would have turned into Pickle Rick by now. This is so stupid. So Rick is drunk and crying with a C4. Morty, they killed my dad, Morty. That's stupid. I think the worst part about this is that the player thinks he's so clever. He thinks he's so smart because like, this is what Rick would do. It's awesome to build a character that is based off of something else, but unless it is specifically stated that you are playing that character, say it's like an isekai where you're pulled out of your universe and thrown into this one, and a bunch of characters from the multiverse have to attack a lunar base, then that would make sense. This is what Rick would do. But if it's not stated as that and you're just being an asshole, no, that's stupid. Please don't do that. It's no fun for anybody, and it doesn't progress the story any further. You're just preventing people from having fun. It's what he would do. He's upset. The DM shrugged and said it wouldn't be fair to the player to leave Rick behind. So we rolled our eyes, told him we needed to work with us rather than against us, and went along with it for the rest of the session. Then we all independently quit before the next session. Yeah, I would not want to play in that game either. Not only is the player being an asshole in this situation, but the DM is being a coward. When DMing, you need to recognize when a player is inhibiting the other party, and you need to pull them aside and talk to them. You don't necessarily need to call them out at the table, but you definitely need to talk to them. If a player is inhibiting the rest of the party, it's no fun for anybody. Kind of wishing he did Pickle Rick at this point in time, because it would have been annoying, but hell, wouldn't have been that bad. I think the most annoying part about this story is he's saying, yeah, I played Rick Sanchez. I played Rick Sanchez, and I am so lore accurate to Rick Sanchez that I got drunk and I have a C4 attached to my chest because I'm sad. But he was like, okay, let me create a scenario where this would happen. So I'm drunk and sad because one of the scientists we killed was my father.
Rick, I am your father.
No! That would have been funny. But this is just stupid. It's inhibiting. The DM is boring. The main story right here is the fact that the dude is playing Rick Sanchez. The side story is the fact that the DM is boring and a coward. That's not fun. On to the next. DM tried to kill my character in the first session while letting the rogue do whatever he wanted. Great. Favoritism. Right off the bat. Let's see where it goes. I am a longtime DM, and as such, I don't get to play very often. So after posting on Discord about wanting to play, I joined an online group. There was a paladin, me, a rogue, and a wizard. The DM sent us off on a couple of simple quests, kill some wolves, and try to steal back an item from some harpies. At first, everything is going fine. We travel through the woods, find the wolves, and roll initiative. This is where it started to go bad. Wizard and I both rolled okay initiative. Rogue rolled a nat 20. DM tells Rogue that he can have 2 full turns during a surprise round before we start initiative because of his nat 20. No. No, I've never played with, okay, you rolled a nat 20 so you get a surprise round rule, but 2 full turns? 2? No, not allowed. Bad start. Oh god, this is terrible. So the rogue, level 3 assassin, charges in and the DM grants him sneak attack on every hit, which is an auto crit because of his surprise round and assassinate. So rogue just goes crazy, killing off like 5 of the wolves during his 2 free turns. Then initiative starts and everything kind of proceeds smoothly, even though half the wolves were dead at this point. That sucks. I imagine it's like wolves all around us. I know what we need to do. I'll ready my sword. Oh, guys, I just did it. What? Oh, yeah, I took care of everything. Wolves are gone. Yeah, I just kind of stabbed them a little bit. I'm fast, I'm quick. What can I say? I don't like that. Then we headed over to the Harpy quest. The DM informed us that the Harpies weren't evil, so we didn't have to kill them. Just try and get back the item they had stolen. The Harpy's nest was an abandoned building on the side of a cliff with a 100-foot drop, crashing waves below. There was a small pathway leading through a cave that we could use to approach the Harpies. The rogue charges ahead, making a single stealth check to move around 100 or so feet towards the Harpies. Both the wizard and I stay back. Rogue's orders until he was far enough ahead. I then tried to move quietly, rolling a stealth check at disadvantage. To my dismay, I rolled 2 nat 1s. That sucks. The DM informed me that the sound of my chainmail armor clanking alerted the Harpies to my presence, and they were now pissed. Cue initiative roll. When's it gonna turn? I rolled less than the Harpies, so they got to act before me or the wizard, while the rogue continued to creep towards them. The Harpies hit me with their luring song, which somehow I was the only one that had to make the saving throw, despite the text saying that every creature in 300 feet and the wizard standing 10 feet in front of me. No. This is favoritism. What's the opposite of favoritism? This is hateism. If you're a DM, don't do that. That's not cool, and that's not fun. On the other hand, I'm thinking, bro, you catching this beat? This is sick. Dude, I don't hear anything. What are you talking about? Dude, what do you mean? Like the speaker is 100 feet away from you. Nah, man, I think you're making it up. All right. I, of course, failed the save. I am now charmed by the Harpies. One of the Harpies picks me up and drags me off the cliff, holding me some 100+ feet over the open water and crushing waves. If they drop me, I am dead. The fall would drop me to 0, and since no one can save me, that's it for my character. On the rogue's turn, he moves some 60 feet into the Harpy's nest, searching for the item. Finds a locked chest and is able to unlock the chest, pick up the item, and move out of the house and some 60 feet away, not making a single stealth check or even a roll to pick the lock. No, that's stupid. Okay, if the rogue was hasted, let's say it was full movement, cunning action dash, plus searching for the locked chest. Sure, free action, whatever. Unlock the chest, action, and then move out of the house. The math doesn't add up. I'm not saying let your players get away with everything, but don't let one player get away with everything while you're punishing the other players. That's horrible. Don't do that. That's not fun. The rogue is the Flash, and the paladin is the civilian that the Flash is supposed to save. Great. Wizard's turn, he attempts to talk to the Harpies, but they are angry because I made noise, apparently. They're angry because he made noise. That's why they're trying to kill him. Since that's literally all that has happened. Wizard and Harpies argue back and forth for several minutes about releasing me and letting us leave. The DM skips my turn since I can't do anything. No, give your players a chance to escape. Railroading is okay, sometimes. This is bad railroading. The railroading that needs to happen is Thomas the Tank Engine. This is Choo Choo Charles. Despite the fact that I should have gotten a chance to save from the charm. Exactly. Rogue then gets to move super speed again back through the cave towards us, where he walks out and tries to calm the Harpies by talking to them. Not once did the rogue have to roll a persuasion check or anything. He just got to do it. After a bit of back and forth and more than one threat to simply drop me for disturbing them, the rogue is forced to give up his bag of holding, which he had just purchased at the start of the session, to appease the Harpies. Schadenfreude. I love that. After forcing me to agree to repay him the price he paid for the bag. Otherwise, they would just leave me there. The Harpies released me and flew away, and we got out of there. Once we were back in town, the session came to an end, and I left the party telling the DM I wouldn't be back. Good. Get out of there. Run as far away as you possibly can. This DM is a harm to himself and others. There is an argument to be made that let the players have fun. I personally take the rule of fun over everything. If a rule would get in the way of somebody having fun, that rule doesn't need to exist. But you're letting one kid at the party eat the entire cake and the other kids have to sit in the corner and watch. This is not good. If anybody finds themselves in this situation where the DM is favoring another player, don't put yourself through that. That's not a good time for anybody, especially not yourself. Get out of there, run as fast as you can, find a different group. There are better ones out there, I promise you. As far as I know, no one in the group had known each other before we started playing. This was our first session together and my only session with the group. Any attempt I made to try and tell the DM he skipped my turn or didn't let me make my save was ignored, and I was betrayed by the other two players for pissing off the Harpies. When again, literally, all I did was take a few steps forward and made noise. In D&D, reasoning doesn't always have to be there. It doesn't. But when you give reasoning, it has to make sense to an extent. Even if that extent is suspension of disbelief, the fact that the DM clearly stated that these harpies were not hostile towards them, and then this whole thing kicked off when the chainmail clinked a little bit. I'm not sure if you've ever heard chainmail clink before. It's not an abrasive sound. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me at all. All I'm thinking about is the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown was like, what did you guys get for D&D? I got free haste. I got a free action. I got a rock. If you're in a situation like this, get out of there as fast as you can. Because the more time you waste trying to fix the situation that you're in, the less time you have to put yourself into a better situation. Actually goes for more things than D&D, but I digress. This one is interesting. Former friend creates a group to copy my group's characters and play them better. I have no thoughts on this initially. I'm so excited. Let's go. I honestly never thought that I'd be posting here, as all the vast majority of my games have managed to be normal enough until recently. The names in the story were changed. For context, I've started playing D&D 5th edition in early 2023. I had a blast researching lore and tinkering with ideas for my first characters. After a few one-shots and short campaigns, I managed to land a spot in a game that seemed perfect for me. Roleplay oriented, lore heavy, story set in the Forgotten Realms, and running a homebrew set of modules that had a party zipping across the continent and solving arcane mystery. Hell yeah. The group consisted of 5 of us players and the DM. Everyone created a really interesting characters with cool, quirky traits, and we each had our role to play solving the mystery that we were facing. The first 10 or so sessions ran well until one of our players, Jenna, was playing a high elf archfey warlock, needed to take a brief break from the campaign for 2 or 3 sessions for personal reasons. The party was sad to see her go, even if briefly, but she had an interesting idea on how to cover her short absence, as her character was possessed with a tulpa that was released as a result of one of our missions. She thought that a different person, Steve, a mutual friend of mine and hers, who was thus far not in the campaign, could run her character in her absence, explained as the tulpa having full control over the warlock during this time. That's so cool. If you have to leave for a session, work with the DM to find a cool way to leave the session. I'm sure a majority of DMs will be happy to work with you to have a cool and interesting way for how you leave the session. Like, I've heard of a player goes into a magical coma. They were taken away and they did a side quest before they came back to the party. This is really cool. It is essentially subbing in a player for a player while not negating the party's composition whatsoever. I love this so much. The DM thought it was a cool idea and even mentioned the possibility of Steve returning later for a mini arc that could finish the storyline. Hell yeah, I like that. When's it gonna turn? The first session with the replacement warlock ran pretty smoothly, and Steve ran a very cool, if slightly unnerving, imitation of the character's voice and mannerisms, as a result of knowing Jenna for a long time and being able to mimic her decently well. And while nobody expected him to pull out all the stops, he really did, and did so with joy. In the final session, in which he was going to stand in for the warlock, he even dropped a few hints that he discussed with our DM, which we could later use to fight the tulpa in their true form. Oh, that's awesome. Gimmicks are cool. Gimmicks are fun. Not in the sense of this is the only solution, but here's a few more options. Definitely try and experiment with that if you are DM, you know what I mean? Once Jenna came back, it was business as usual for a few weeks. Steve did message both of us a few times asking if he could join the campaign in earnest with his own character, as he really grew to like the group and our dynamic. We asked the DM as well as Lauren, the player hosting our game, about this. While the DM was happy to have them join, Lauren was worried about not having enough room in her very, very small apartment and mentioned that she'd be happy for Steve to join if somebody else could host the game. Jenna and I passed this back to Steve, who did not seem particularly bothered either way and said that it was not a big deal, that he'd find a different group, and that seemed the end of it. It wasn't. I can definitely understand the point of not having a space big enough to host a game night. I have always lived in small places, and so I've never been particularly bothered with it, but I completely understand that it is valid. You are more than welcome to do that. I don't know where this is going at all. About 2 months later, Jenna had to miss a session, and both DM and Lauren offered to have Steve join if he wished for another piece of the tulpa storyline. He agreed, however, unlike the first 3 sessions that he took part in, where he was engaged, focused, and did his best. This time around, he was dismissive, disrupted the game with a weird meta humor, and made snarky remarks about the way the other players roleplayed their characters, and mumbled cryptic comments under his breath. No, no, no. No, 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 no. Oh, God. Steve's got beef. That's plain and simple. Steve's got beef. That's not fun. This made everyone really uncomfortable. And in order to, as we put it, not end up on RPG horror stories, We decided not to invite him back and let Jenna act as both her warlock and Tulpa upon the conclusion of that storyline. The task fell to Jenna and I to have to tell Steve that his comments made the others uncomfortable and that he would unfortunately not be welcomed back. He was short, if slightly annoyed with me, but didn't argue and stopped replying shortly afterwards. He did say more in return to Jenna in their chats, however, including a long, insulting tirade about how shallow, vapid, and one-dimensional she made the warlock. Oh! Being salty about not being able to join a group for space reasons is one thing, but insulting somebody's role-playing skills because you're salty is another thing. Steve, come on, you're better than this. He sounds like a child. Honestly, this is ridiculous. That's some 10-cent words. Shallow, vapid, and one-dimensional. If you're gonna burn somebody, burn it right. Steve did it right, but I don't like that. And how he was doing a lot better portraying her. Okay, that's even worse. I should have finished that. Oh, okay, cool. Furthermore, despite our continued attempts to work things through and figure out what went wrong, he continued distancing himself from us. Jenna and I were saddened at the apparent loss of the friendship, partially because Steve never showed any signs of this kind of behavior before. But, after a mutual talk amongst the three of us, we decided it would be better to leave it be now while things were still somewhat civil. Yeah, that sucks. Ending a friendship is never easy. People underestimate how hard it is to lose a friend. It's like if you have a really good friend, that person knows you very well. It's kind of like losing a part of your life. Friendship breakups are the unexpected hurt that comes with adult life. I'm glad they put an end to it while they were ahead. You know what I mean? There's more to this. How is it gonna get worse? Just like previously, things returned somewhat to normal for a while. The campaign was going strong and the roleplay and character interactions were getting better and better. We had a lot of fun just being able to kick back and relax after a long week. Around this time, Steve messaged both Jenna and I apologizing for his behavior at his most recent appearance in the game and asked if he could speak to the rest of the group as well. After checking with them, we all had a group call where he admitted to being hurt by not being allowed to join, letting it fester and saying things that he did not mean out of frustration. He claimed he had gotten over it, and after some time with his new group and some therapy, as a friendly gesture and hoping to bury the hatchet, he offered to book us a night at the game room at a local game store that had all the bells and whistles for amazing tabletop experiences. And while he did not explicitly state that he would do this for the DM letting him finish his storyline as the Tulpa, he did his best to phrase it indirectly. However, we weren't comfortable with him paying for all of it, so we calculated the per person cost and paid him back. It was the thought that counted anyways. Steve sounds like a little bit of a manipulator. He seems like he's been around the block and has done it before. It looked to be a perfect resolution. How foolish we were. Upon our arrival at the game room, we were delighted to find it had plenty of space as well as amazing terrain, minis, mood lighting, and much, much more. Steve was there first along with 5 other people. When all of us arrived, he mentioned that they were his friends from his new campaign, and that they, being new players, wanted to watch the game unfold and hopefully get some inspiration from it. Now he has an audience. Prediction: I think Steve is going to make a grand gesture and he's going to try and humiliate them as much as he can. As the room was massive and he did his best to organize everything, we had no issue with it at the time. We were too excited to play and see this storyline to its conclusion. After a 5-hour session, the Tulpa was finally defeated and all of us had fun, interesting moments with our characters and couldn't wait for the next session. We thanked Steve and all seemed well. This was until the 5 spectators started laughing at us. It wasn't long until Steve joined in on the mockery. They then revealed to us that for the past 3 months, they had been playing our characters in a campaign of their own and were aghast at how terrible our performances and roleplay were compared to theirs. I forgot the title of this story. Oh my god. I think this is the closest you can get to an 80s movie where the jocks make fun of the nerds and set them up for failure, but both sides are nerds. I don't understand it. What? We at first thought it was a joke, as Steve was known for pulling elaborate pranks before. That was until they started acting out, in my opinion, poor imitation of our characters' voices, quoting their backstories and pulled out the fixed versions of their character sheets with more optimal feats, magical items, and higher stats. They briefly clarified that Steve told them that our wasted potential with our characters and how they made a group specifically to do what we were doing, but better. We were speechless. I'm speechless. What? This is psychopathic. This is the RPG equivalent of making dolls of people. Oh, look at me. I'm Remeron. I am a 4th level cleric. I can heal so many people better than the other Remeron. I definitely know how to do it better. This is ridiculous. This is psychopathic. Oh my god. For one moment, we thought that we were on one of those candid camera shows. Jenna and I quickly apologized for Steve's behavior, as we considered ourselves partially responsible for all this, and tried to leave the store. This is when we discovered that Steve had not paid for the use of the room, only the holding deposit for an open date ticket. While opinions were mixed on whether or not we should contest it with the owner, as we did pay our shares to Steve well in advance, Jenna and I agreed to cover it between ourselves, and the rest of the group pitched in for drinks and snacks, etc. That's heartbreaking. Not only did Steve do something absolutely psychopathic, but he also stole from all of them. Like, he committed a crime. This is wrong on so many levels. I'm trying to come up with something to say here, but the long and short of it is, don't do that. If you're having thoughts that maybe you should do something like this, look for therapy. Something like that. This is literally crazy. Like, in the most clinical terms, this is crazy. It took us a while to really come to terms with what happened. While it would be fun to be able to say that we got back at him or did something cool in response, we did not. Our next session was canceled, and we took that time to discuss what happened. Jenna and I apologized for allowing him back into the group, but the rest of the group insisted on it not being our fault. For a while, we felt like something was taken from us, as the whole experience felt like such a massive breach of privacy, decency, trust, and what we thought was friendship. We didn't play for a while after that. However, after a month-long hiatus, DM and Lauren insisted on us meeting again. Last night, our party awoke in a dreamy haze somewhere in the Feywild with some of their memories gone. They were a little worse for wear and terribly confused, just like we were IRL, but they decided to pick themselves up and keep at it, just as our little friend group did as well. Like, that made me a little misty-eyed. I gotta be completely honest. People are shitty. People are really, really shitty. But as long as you can keep chugging along after the horrible things they did to you, I'd say you're doing pretty fine. You're doing A-okay. But Steve's a fucking psychopath. Straight up, not gonna lie. P.S. To hell with Steve. All my homies hate Steve. All our homies hate Steve. Turns out my phone died in the outro. But my opinion still stands. Fuck Steve. God. We need Steve hate in the comments. But, yeah. You're gonna have bad things happen to you. The best thing to do is just keep moving forward. There's better groups out there. There's better people out there. I promise you that. Those were 3 bangers, for sure. That last one was the worst one I have ever read in this series or otherwise. Thanks for sticking around with me, but I'm gonna end it there. If you like this, please give it a like. Subscribe if you would like. There's gonna be more in the future, I promise you that. And if you like this, go check out the other ones. They are also fun. For now, I will say, Auf Wiedersehen, tschüss, and I will catch you in the next one. See y'all.